Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. By the way, I've got to correct, I made mention of the fact that next year's Preterist Pilgrim Weekend is July 12th through 14th. It's not 11th. It is 11th through the 13th, okay? Our theme is how we know we're not living in the last days. I got to tell you, with all of the fear, paranoia, is Donald Trump, the man of sin, has the red heifer been born? Pardon me, and on and on and on it goes. Listen, folks, you need to understand we are not living in the last days. End of story. You want to be here next year, Ardmore, Oklahoma, Preterist Pilgrim Weekend, July 11th through the 13th. All right. In response to your request, I'm examining the issue of the 70 weeks of Daniel chapter 9. Now look, I don't have to tell anyone familiar with this passage, number one, how important it is. Number two, any in-depth, comprehensive discussion of this text would just go on and on and on. It might reach 315 videos. But we're not going to do that. I'm trying to keep it as brief as possible to hit the salient points. Now, one of the critical points, one of the critical issues is when would, i.e., when will the 70 weeks end? Now, among many evangelicals, it is believed that the 70 weeks ended in approximately 34-35. The stoning of Stephen, the calling of the Gentiles, etc. That's common among postmillennialists. As I'll share with you here momentarily, Kenneth Gentry, Gary DeMar, to my knowledge, Joel McDermott, Keith Matheson, and others. They all take the position that the 70 weeks ended in AD 70. That view is even taken by some who call themselves preterist. Quite honestly, I don't know how you could take that position and be a preterist. But that's one view. That is, the 70 weeks ended in AD 70. Now that view is taken by those who, seeking to find an absolutely sequential order of the 70-week countdown, do not believe that there is any gap between the first half of the 70th week and the 70th. I'm going to be discussing that somewhat in depth, okay? Just hang on to that. Another view of the end of the 70 weeks is, of course, the dispensational view. That view says Jesus came, the end of the 69th week takes us right to his baptism. He was anointed. The Father said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Jesus offered the kingdom, which, if Jesus appeared during the countdown of Daniel 9, and he appeared at the end of the 69th week, then that means the kingdom, the judgment, the resurrection, all had to be truly imminent. Look, folks, you can't take the position that Daniel 9 is messianic and eschatological and say anything else. However, according to the dispensational paradigm, when Jesus offered the kingdom to Israel, Israel rejected that offer. And according to such dispensational writers, authors, speakers, etc., as Thomas Ice, even though Jesus offered the kingdom to Israel, Israel's unbelief made it, quote, impossible, unquote, for Jesus to establish the kingdom. We'll have more to say about that as we continue in this series. As a result of the postponement of the kingdom, that 70th week was actually postponed, and at some future time in our future, supposedly very soon, we will have the rapture. The rapture will take the church off of the earth because God will stop dealing with the church on the earth at that time and resume dealing with Israel at that time. Kind of interesting to me that it's claimed that God will continue dealing with Israel at the rapture, when in fact it's the man of sin dealing with Israel, not God. It is the man of sin that makes the covenant with Israel, not God. All of that said, during the middle of that 70th week, the man of sin revokes the treaty. Ensuing is the Great Tribulation, followed by, at the climax, at the very end of the 70th week, the second coming of Christ, the ensuing millennium. That's the end of the 70th week. So there's a humongous gap of so far 2,000 years between the 69th and the 70th week. I would suggest to you that that is absolutely untenable, and I will share with you an awful lot of material on this that I have yet to have a single dispensationalist, even in formal public debate, hasn't even offered a word of rebuttal to the material that I will share with you. So the question is, when was the 70 weeks to end? Here is one thing absolutely for certain. The fate of Israel and the fate of their city lies within the 70 weeks. 70 weeks are determined on your people and on your city. Now, look, folks, there's simply no way to get the fate of the city, to get the fate of the people outside the 70 weeks, since Daniel was told 70 weeks are determined on your people and on your city. How can you have the fate of the people and of the city lie outside those divinely established parameters? And thus, when it is suggested that the 70 weeks ended in 34-35 AD, when the people still existed and the city still existed, contra what verse 26 and 27 describes of Daniel chapter 9, that within itself is an absolute contradiction of the text. It is a violation of the text. It is a distortion of the text. And thus, in tomorrow's video, I'm going to examine very carefully the claim that, well, the actual fate of the city didn't happen within the 70 weeks. The actual fate of the people and the city was determined within the 70 weeks. That is absolutely 100% false. So, do not miss tomorrow's video, when I will show you that it is simply untenable, not possible, that the 70 weeks ended in 34 or 35 AD. In the meantime, get a copy of my book, 70 Weeks Are Determined for the Resurrection. Now, as I suggested a moment ago, you cannot admit, you cannot admit that Daniel 9 contains any eschatology. Pardon me, where did that come from? You cannot admit that Daniel 9 contains any eschatological prophecy and have the end of the 70 weeks in 34 and 35 AD. Doesn't work. Go to my website, donkpreston.com, bibleprophecy.com. Order the book, 70 Weeks Are Determined for the Resurrection. Send me a note that says you saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook, and I will not only refund your shipping, I'll give you a free copy of Can God Tell Time? But you got to remember, send me a note that you saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook when you send payment. All right, don't forget, tomorrow, when did the 70 weeks end? Did they end in 34 or 35 AD? We'll see you on the flip side.